Listen, how do you know when somebody in your life is asking for help? And I mean that, like, how do you know that? Because rarely do we, like, just kind of come out and say it, like, out loud, like saying, like, listen, I'm struggling, like, can you give me a hand? Right? It doesn't often happen this way. And I know this not only from my own experience, because I struggled a lot. And I think asking for help has never really come out properly, because it's always just kind of came just blurting out or acting out, and people kind of had to, I think, figure it out. But most of all, I kept it so deep within that most of the time I never got help. And I think that's why we feel so alone. You know, in our culture today, we talk about, us not seeking help, especially if you've been touched by trauma, if you've been through hardship, if you're dealing with mental health that come from dealing with trauma, that come from dealing with things that are difficult, that we don't want to talk about, things we might not even remember. And it affects us. It has this profound impact on our life, and yet we have no idea on how to bring it out, right? And the culture tells us it's because we do not seek help. And it's because, we don't want to be seen as weak. We don't want to be seen as struggling. And I think that's true, but that's a very superficial level. Right? Because listen, nobody wants to be seen as weak. Am I right? Like, none of us in any given situation want to be seen as weak. So that's a normal reaction. We have to go past that. So today, I'm going to talk about the 4 big things, 4 big reasons why we actually do not seek help when we really needed to. And what we can do when those reasons come up. What can we do to really push forward, seek help on our terms, so that we can feel happier? Isn't that what life is about? That's why I started this podcast, right? Because we all have this power to be happy, to seek greater clarity in everything that we do, so stuff makes sense, right? So that we live with purpose, so to have greater hope for the future, for our lives today, so that we don't get, held back by the past, and to give our best every single day, so that we know, not to prove to anyone else, but to ourselves, that we are enough. If you don't know me, my name is Joe Bakhmutsky. I've been through some difficult things in my life, and I wrote a book about it. It's called Finding Hope in Times of Uncertainty, a guide to thriving in a challenging world of today. I started this podcast. That's why I do coaching, helping trauma survivors, helping those who've been touched by trauma to not only make sense of life and find greater depth of meaning and presence and greater level of happiness and a sense of belonging, but also learn new skills that help us. Because listen, I struggled alone for so long. And it wasn't until finding community, finding understanding, finding my own kind of path towards healing, then I was able to feel so much more in control of my life, so much more calm, so much more giving with my family, with my friends, with people I care about, so much more bold in the types of dreams that I want to have, in terms of impact that I want to make in my own life. And that is what I want for you. So I think it's, when we talk about seeking help, and we're going to talk about the 4 big things that really, when we dig deep, prevent us from getting support that we want, we're not just talking about help in time of crisis. Seeking that help makes you feel more whole, makes you feel like you're on this path towards a greater level of the presence and love and giving and joy in life, right? That's what it's about. It just opens up possibilities for so many beautiful things, to bring them in or to take them to just this so much higher levels than we could have ever imagined before, because we lived in a struggle, because we lived in survival, which is necessary. We need to survive, especially when you've been through the struggle, when you lived in it day to day, you know what it's like. And that's why, like, the first big reason that nobody really talks about why we don't get or don't seek the support that we want, is because we feel secretly, we feel like we're broken. We feel like there's no way out. We feel like, listen, I'm a lost cause. Like, nothing will really help. Even if I go out and I seek support for this, or I go and talk to this person, and nothing is going to help. So we are afraid of what's going to happen, right? Have you been in that place in your life when you look back on times when you are in a really dark place? And you were there, right? And there was thoughts that nothing is going to change. No matter what you do, even if you go out and seek help and do all of these things, it's not going to help because it's a lost cause. I'll tell you what, one thing that happens is, that gets in the way of this, is our own sense of uniqueness. Isn't that weird, right? Because we all talk about how uniqueness is supposed to be such a blessing, and it's such a beautiful thing. And it is, right? We are unique. And your journey and your path in life is unlike anybody else's. And yet, there are so many things that we share in common. Maybe not the events that happened to us exactly, but the feelings of shame, feelings of loneliness, feelings of like nobody gets you, feeling that no matter what you try, you just end up hitting the wall. All like these hundreds and hundreds of things that we share in common, even without realizing, even without even talking about it. And that uniqueness means that we feel, okay, there's no, because like my situation is so unique, like nobody gets it and there's no way out. Well, I'm here to say that because we have this incredible, shared experience that we really have in common, that opens up the possibility. That is the hope, right? Because we all share the profound impact of dealing with tough times, the profound impact on each facet of our lives. And if we share the struggles, then we must also accept that we share a common path towards healing. That our journey towards healing is there. It is possible. It is real. It is something that we all can get behind. It is something that we can all get moving towards. This is something that we cannot hide from. If we accept that in our uniqueness we share so much of our struggle with humanity, with each other, then we are able to look beyond that and say, yes, I can see that not only are struggles not only my own, but those paths to seeking help, support, moving forward, they're the paths that we can share with other people. You know, it's kind of like way back when, right? We used to believe, right, that the earth is in the center of everything. And, you know, and the sun and all the planets and the stars, they kind of revolve around the earth. Right? Because that's what happens when you would look out of a telescope. That's what like they would see, right? And then there came a change when we realized, hold on. Actually, what happens is our planet, we revolve around the sun. It's part of this much greater fabric of the universe and how things fit together. And that was just a profound shift in our mentality because we realized, you know, we are not at the center of the universe. We are just one part of a greater whole. And that's true for all of us who've been touched by trauma. Because that's so liberating. It's not just me. It's not just you. It's us. We're in this together. That's why the first thing we have to believe in is the shared possibility towards healing. We have the shared struggles, but we also have a shared hope, shared possibility of healing and living a greater life. That's how we get past it, believing in the real possibility of healing. Not just like a hypothetical, but listen, if other people have done it, and if they are like you and me, if they're walking towards it, if they're living a life where they don't feel broken, where they feel like things are changing in a positive way, where they feel like they're expressing themselves more fully, when they're feeling like they are understood, when they're feeling they're not alone, when they feel that they belong. That is the possibility of healing, my friend. You're not alone in this. We're in this together. Now, the second thing that really gets in the way of us seeking the support that we really need is a lack of the language, right? A lack of a way to express what you're really feeling. Because so often when we go through difficult experiences, like we don't want to be thinking about them. Isn't that right? Like, I mean, you know, I just, for so many years, when I thought about going through rape as a child, it was something that when like something triggered me, or this image came up in my head, or something like just set me off. Like I tried like everything I could do, I could throw in a way of thinking about it. I could just try to do as I might to turn away from that because I did not want to be part of that reality. This wasn't something that I wanted to do or be part of, right? Isn't that true? Like we wanna move away from the hurt as much as possible. We just want to be moving away from that. So we gotta realize that what we need is ways to express it, and oftentimes that happens through language. Right? If we get to talk about the impact something's had on our life, if we get to talk about or find other ways to express it, whether that's through art, through movement, through just being around other people who get you. We need to have that shared way of expression, that shared language. And listen, that's what happens like in all the any kind of practice in our life, whether it's personal or professional, whether you're talking about someone who is a musician, whether you're talking about someone who is a builder, whether you're talking about someone who is a mother, right? Like all of these practitioners, right? When they talk about whether you talk about the playing music together, or you talk about like building a house, or you talk about kids, right? You have that shared experience, and you kind of use same type of language, right? To just make sure that you're talking about the same thing. But there's kind of these ways to talk about things, there's ways to look at it, right? It becomes the shared way, shared vocabulary, shared expression. And that's what we need with trauma. Because how can you express something? How can you ask for help when you can't even put it into words? How can you ask for help, more importantly, when you can't even make sense of it to yourself, let alone to anybody else? That's key. So we have to find a shared way of expressing our hurts with others. And for that, we have to be in the presence. We have to be in the presence of people like you and me, people like yourself. Maybe not with identical experience, but people who've been through suffering, people who've been through things. Shared experience is vital, because when you hear others people talk about it, when you hear other people's stories, that's when you know that you're not alone. And that's nothing to be sniffed at. It's people talk, well, it's going to be triggering, it's going to be upsetting, it's going to be... No! Life itself is triggering. We've been there. Life is like, we come across things that are going to be like, it might be a sound, it might be the way the light falls on something. Those things might be triggering even though itself. Somebody might say something at the party and you're going to be set off. No, what matters when we've been in the presence of people like you and me who care about it isn't worrying about whether it's triggering or not. It's about going, I'm not alone. And then you finding your own ways to express it, whether that's sharing your story, whether that's through art, whether that's through just being in the presence of other people and going like, it makes sense to me now, right? That's so vital. Finding a shared way of expressing yourself that is shared by being around others, by seeing and feeling other people and how they deal with their own experience and their struggles. It is everything. It's vital, my friend. Third thing is, I think so often in life, we just don't know our own experience. We can't put it into words. And I kind of just touched on it before, but I really believe that what we lack so often, especially when we've been through trauma, is like our experience and our stories become, like life becomes so fragmented, right? It's just like bits and pieces of stuff that's kind of, it's like you take some, it's like a huge like glass chandelier and it just falls crashing down, and it's like glass and bits and pieces just flying everywhere, and it's just all over the place, and you go, how do I put it back together, right? And that's how life often is sometimes, right? How we feel, right? It feels so like it's everywhere, and none of these things seems, everything is broken, none of it fits, right? And that's why it's so vital to strive towards clarity. Clarity, right? Like making things make sense, understanding the magnitude of our own experience, Like, for me, for example, going through and meeting a survivor and making sense of my own experience and writing my play that I'm writing right now about my external experience of trauma, what I believe is a shared experience of dealing with trauma. It opened my eyes onto the simple fact, and by the way, doing therapy as well, which I love and highly recommend, is open my eyes towards, hey, listen, all of this mental health burden, all the struggles that I've experienced in this space have been as a result of these traumatic events that happened. It isn't because like I'm crazy or messed up. I mean, maybe I am weird or messed up, but you know what I mean. Like, there's a reason why I've been feeling all of these things and going through panic attacks and having all of this anxiety. It's because of all this stuff. And I noticed when I started to, do EMDR and do ego state therapy and all those other things that you can do, different types of therapies that are specifically focused on healing trauma, I realized, hold on a second, like, this is improving my mental health. This is actually helping me with my anxiety, with my panic attacks, with everything else, right? Because hold on a second, so these two things are connected, And it gave me so much just insight and clarity into my own experience that I never even thought before. And listen, you might say that, go, Joe, that's so obvious. You should have seen this coming. But listen, we should all see or do those things. But sometimes these realizations, they're so profound in their simplicity. And yet when we start to see them, we start to all of a sudden make connections with different parts of ourselves that have been sealed off, buried, broken. Clarity makes us feel more whole. Because there's parts of us that come back to life. Parts of us that start to feel more. Parts that start to feel more alive. Wanted, understood. We get a greater sense of belonging deep within of ourselves. That's what clarity brings us. I believe that seeking clarity is the single greatest pursuit of our life. That's why I've got my coaching program, Clarity First, where I help my clients to really find the greatest skills they need, not only for survival, which we've all done as trauma survivors, or those who've been touched by trauma, but to thrive. Skills like clarity, like confidence, like contribution. How do we get to feel that we belong more? How do we get this sense of living a greater life that goes beyond survival? That's what matters. If you want to find out more, go to my website, powertobehappy.com, and click on the Clarity First link to find out more about my coaching program. That is a unique implementation program that is put together especially for those who've been touched by trauma, to get them from survival into thriving and leading a greater life in 12 sessions. It's been specifically designed for this explicit purpose. But seeking clarity is, how do you make sense of your own experience? Do you journal? Do you write about your experience? Do you have a therapist? Do you have a friend or your partner that you can sit down and just try to make sense of stuff out loud? Do you spend time on your own, asking questions, talking about things that matter to you right now? That's what matters. In making and finding a greater sense of clarity. How do things fit? How do things connect? That's what matters, my friend. Seeking clarity. The fourth big thing that really gets in the way of seeking support that we truly want. And this is a weird one. And it's also the most difficult one to notice. And that is the sense of, I'm handling it. Unless we see that there is a challenge, unless we see that there is a problem and we can call it out, we're never going to be able to deal with it. We're never going to be able to conquer it. We're never going to be able to go past it. We're never going to be able to deal with it in a meaningful way, because when you don't know it's there, you're never not going to know what's been lost or that you found it. Isn't it true? Well, listen, for so many years, I thought that this whole experience of going through rape, I thought as a child, I thought I kind of put it behind me. I thought I worked through it on my own, through kind of my wild years. And it's helped. But only when it came up and was triggered by the war in Ukraine, and I started actually doing therapy, and I started talking to other survivors, and I started to reflecting on this. Only in the process of dealing with it, I discovered just how huge of a problem it's actually been. And uncovering that was only possible through the process of healing. And it brought such a greater sense of calm, of internal togetherness. It brought a greater sense of who I am. So if you feel that there's a challenge in your life and you're handling it, my question to you is what is the evidence that that is happening? What is the evidence that you're on top of it? Or that you are trying to, deal with it as best as you can? Is it, what are your indicators? Is it your happiness? Is it your level of calm? How would you know that to be true? Do you feel that you've put things in place to really help you deal with it on a regular basis? Do you have a rhythm that maybe you see a therapist? Are you able to talk about your experiences with other people? Are you able to journal about your experiences? Do you feel like it is interrupting your life? What I'm trying to say is what is the evidence that you have that you're handling it? And maybe you are, but you want to know what is the evidence that you can point to and say, this is how I'm dealing with it. This is how I know I'm on top of it. Because right now, I feel like I'm on top of things. Not because I'm perfect and my healing will be the task of the lifetime. That's how I look at it. But I feel like I'm on my way because I'm constantly doing something that helps me feel better. I'm doing these podcasts. I'm talking about my experience with other people. I've shared it with my friends and family. I'm seeing my therapist regularly. I gave up drinking. I'm doing physical exercise quite a bit, more than I've done ever in the past. So this is my evidence. What's yours? Like I said, the biggest things we talk about is why we do not seek help and support. Just go beyond. We go way beyond just not wanting to be seen as weak or incapable. That's surface level stuff. That's what nobody wants to be seen as weak. Not you, not I. We go beyond this. And we talk about the big four things that really come up. One is not seeing the possibility, feeling we are broken, but knowing that in our shared struggles, also lies a shared path towards hope, to hope of healing, of living a greater life that we aspire to together to move forward. That's the possibility. Then, oftentimes we don't have the means to share what's our hurt, to deal with it in a meaningful way. So we have to find a way of expressing your pain, expressing your joy, expressing your struggles. And that comes from being in a community and being around people, whether that's in a support group, whether that's in a community like ours, from trauma to triumph. But being around people who struggle and want to get better and want more from life. That's key. Seeking clarity. It's so vital to look at our experience as a whole and see, how do things connect? How do things really make sense? That's vital, my friend. And then if you feel like you're handling it, I want to go, what is the evidence that is in place for knowing that you're on top of it? What is the evidence in knowing that I'm dealing with it as best as I possibly can? That's what matters, my friend. I hope this serves you in understanding that your own blockers, challenges, roadblocks that come up in the way of seeking help. I want you to know that seeking help and support through therapy, through friends, through loved ones, is the bravest things you can do for yourself. And taking that next step for you, whatever that is, I want you to know that there's a possibility of feeling so much better, feeling that you belong, feeling so much less pain and hurt, and feeling good about yourself and the world around you. My name is Joe Bakhmutsky. I honor your experience. I honor where you're at. I honor where you're going. I thank you for being here. I'll see you next time.